Now I'd like to hand it off to our first presenter, Leo Galetta, to begin the webinar. Leo.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Leo Galetta, one of the principals of Converged Technology Group, and I want to thank everyone for attending today's webinar. We have a pretty diverse group of attendees on the call, ranging from organizations who leverage traditional PBXs, IP alternatives to Cisco systems and Cisco solutions. Within those organizations who leverage Cisco technology, there are companies that have basic dial tone and messaging on older versions of Cisco Unified Communications, to organizations that have fairly complex virtualized implementations of multiple UC applications in their environment. So as a quick introduction to Converged Technology Group, for those organizations who have not worked with us before, we position ourselves as a leading provider of co-managed advanced technology solutions. What this typically means is that we design a private cloud solution that's either located in the customer data center or at a co-location facility. We assist our customers with the implementation and then provide them with co-managed ongoing support as an extension of their existing IT team as the solution transitions into a more operational phase of its life cycle. Many of the solutions that we provide our customers include multi-application and multi-vendor integrated platforms. So there's a fair amount of complexity there that requires a team of folks that are proficient in the effective design, implementation, and then the ongoing support of the solutions that we bring to market. And it's our experience that a solution that's designed by experienced architects who understand the system, the existing customer environment, the application dependencies that would help ensure successful implementation ultimately translates to the best customer experience. As we go to market, we typically organize ourselves around three specific solution areas. Network infrastructure, so that typically means LAN switching, WAN routing, wireless LAN solutions, integrated security architectures. Unified communications, which is the topic of today's webinar. Virtualized data center, mostly around server virtualization, virtual desktop infrastructure, backup and recovery solutions, any sort of business continuity and DR. And ultimately, Converged Technology Group is a Cisco Gold partner and Master Unified Communications partner. So from a Master UC perspective, there's only approximately 70 Master UC partners that serve this particular market. Out of the thousands of partners, we're considered to be unique amongst them. As an organization, we're known for engineering excellence, and it's been one of the key differentiators in terms of our customers' experience in working with Converged Technology Group. So ultimately, if there's anything that we can do to help you in these areas, we look forward to meeting you in person. So with that, I'd like to introduce Scott Nitty, our Director of Technology Solutions, who will be presenting the content for today's webinar. Scott, please take it away.
Thanks, Leo. I appreciate everybody taking time today to join us. We're going to do our best to manage to the time slot that's been allocated, because we do have respect for everybody's time. We know you guys are busy, so we want to kind of start getting through these slides. So I think first and foremost, as Leo said, a lot of you are, as far as collaboration is concerned, you're at different, at different phases or at different parts of life cycle or adoption. So we're gonna try to talk and make sure everybody's included as part of the presentation. But at any given point, if you have any questions, please feel free to use the Q&A panel, and Brian will definitely get back to you. So with that being said, Cisco Collaboration is really an umbrella that encompasses four functional areas. The first area being Unified Communications, and Unified Communications is really our, hang on, let me change that color. I don't know why it's pink. We'll leave it that color. But Unified Communications is really our core of collaboration. That's where our call control, Unified Communications Manager, our endpoints, our messaging portfolio pretty much resides under. So, under collaboration, I guess collaboration really started by Unified Communications. Also, part of the collaboration portfolio is collaboration applications. So as Unified or IP telephony, Unified Communications or IP telephony grew, a lot of the applications became more relevant to organizations because they said, hey, listen, now I have dial tone. What else can this great system that you provided, this open architecture, provide me? So there's a lot of applications that can reside on top of that that can really enhance the employee productivity when we talk about maybe presence and Jabber later on in the slide deck. So that would fall into the collaboration applications. Customer collaboration is really when we start talking about customer contact, interaction, contact centers. So within the collaboration portfolio, we have Contact Center Express, we have Contact Center Enterprise, depending on the type of environment, to provide for those type of customer collaboration scenarios. But we also have customer interactions, whether it be web-based or instant messaging, via via portals and stuff like that, that maybe customers may come into the website, may want to access the contact center through that method, email, and other methods as well. So that would fall under the customer collaboration portfolio. And last but not least, as video, pervasive video, immersive video becomes more relevant within a lot of organizations, obviously, that portfolio and an adoption of telepresence within the collaboration suite becomes more realized, and a support within the different architectures to take on video becomes more relevant. And we'll see within Unified Communications Manager 9 later in the slides, really, I guess, what Cisco has done to provide for the pervasive video experience within UC9. Now, one last thing I want to touch on within this deck is the majority, if not all, of these components or subcomponents of the collaboration suite can be offered in a on-prem, a hybrid type of model, which would be on-prem and cloud-based, or in a cloud, so hosted, which would be a hosted type of offering. So whether it be applications, call control, customer contact, or video, we have various options when it comes to those type of scenarios as far as the back-end infrastructure is concerned. So let's focus on unified communications. When we talk about unified communications, we really have our core of that environment being Cisco Unified Communications Manager. Cisco Unified Communications Manager provides us our call control features. So endpoints, whether they be phones, whether they be video endpoints these days, mobile devices, pretty much register back or communicate directly to that call control environment so that we can make intelligent decisions around communication. So all that back-end functionality is provided from Cisco Unified Communications. Now the applications, whether it be messaging, whether it be presence-based applications, pretty much tie back into Unified Communications Manager. And then we have our layer of endpoints that reside on top of that, which is our pretty much the various endpoints being mobile devices, physical phones, or video-based endpoints. In this case, we're showing some pervasive endpoints and some immersive. Now, again, as I mentioned earlier, pretty much we're just showing that, hey, listen, these type of services can be offered as a totally on-prem offering. A hybrid offering, well, maybe, hey, listen, I have some video in my environment. Maybe I want to outsource some of it in the cloud, and I want to take a certain component of it and bring it in-house. Maybe the same holds true for maybe conferencing or audio conferencing capabilities. So that would be considered a hybrid model. Or maybe I want to kind of leverage the capabilities in the cloud that like we are leveraging today within WebEx, where maybe I'm leveraging a hosted service where pretty much all my services reside in the cloud, whether it be audio bridge and web collaboration, right? So pretty much showing the different options there. Now, within Cisco Unified Communications Manager, I think what we've seen, and for those of you who are, I guess, new to Cisco as far as the architecture is concerned, as the architecture has grown, and we talk about Unified Communications Manager 9, what we've seen is the collapsing of a lot of the services. So in the past, where maybe we had separate back-end infrastructure components to support various functionality within the environment, what we're seeing now is the collapse of those type of functionalities into Unified Communications Manager itself. So in the past, maybe where I needed to have a separate video infrastructure, in this case of Cisco Tandberg, maybe a separate VCS, video communication server to control my video endpoints, separate voice, so pretty much having these disparate systems that are integrated, but kind of are functioning on their own. What we're seeing now is the collapsing of those type of services, right? So we're seeing the mobility services being collapsed, so where we have single number reach capabilities. I have the capability to have smart devices, such as iPhones, iPads, Android devices, have soft clients on them that can register back into my system. I don't need to have a separate server on the back end that is supporting just the mobile devices. We're leveraging a single platform in order to provide for that. A lot of the presence capabilities, especially in UC9, have been collapsed in to the Unified Communications Manager. Although we still need to have a server, we're making progress as far as a lot of the configuration administration is concerned. And from a messaging standpoint, we still have Unity Connection. So Unity Connection is Cisco's messaging platform. It supports a voicemail only or a unified environment. Unified messaging being integrating with your current mail system, being Exchange. We also service or support Office 365, so really kind of playing into that hybrid type of architecture where maybe you have an on-prem messaging system that may tie up into a cloud-based hosted email service. And maybe in the future we may additionally seeing other services collapse as well. But the point being that we have Cisco Unified Communications Manager being our core, and we have all these different services, whether they be collapsed or separate at this point, eventually being collapsed into one environment. So within Unified Communications Manager 9, we have a lot of interesting features and a lot of slick new capabilities that have been built into it that'll provide additional flexibility, whether it be from a licensing perspective, whether it be from an endpoint standpoint. So where we have various endpoints, obviously as new endpoints come out, endpoint support becomes a requirement. As new video components come out, and endpoint support becomes a requirement. So we're providing a lot more flexibility there in UC9, where maybe the previous versions of Unified Communications Manager didn't necessarily support maybe certain video endpoints that you had. So now they've grown that support as well. And we know there's been some challenges in the past with licensing, which we're going to talk about a little further on in the deck. Also, we spoke about the collapsing of the certain applications or services that are offered through the Unified Communications environment. And really, within UC9, we're taking that to the next level as far as video is concerned, because we're actually taking a lot of the video control system services and integrating it within the Unified Communications Manager. So it's giving us the capability to, where in the past we maybe have to have a video infrastructure and voice infrastructure, now we're bridging those two systems by taking a lot of that capability in-house. Now there's always going to be the scenario based on the architecture where it may drive the requirement to still have a separate video component to support that, but you know, a lot of the functionality and features have been built into the system. Also, one of the key aspects of Unified Communications Manager 9 is we're actually able to leverage the existing investments that maybe customers have made in the systems that they already have in place. So as far as maybe voice gateways that you've made investments with, maybe other type of systems as far as servers that you made investments with that are running Unified Communications Manager or Unity Connection today, depending on where you are with that, we may be able to leverage that existing investment so that we can support that environment on UC with UC9. So in the next section, what we're going to do, we'll talk about Unified Communications Manager 9. We're going to talk about the new user-centric licensing, which some of you may be familiar with, but really has been expanded in Unified Communications Manager 9. From a management perspective, what enhancements or benefits has Cisco implemented into their environment in order to pretty much take care of that scenario, because a lot of us who have Unified Communications today have experienced some challenges. We're going to talk about some new features, one of them being Extended Connect and really what that brings to the table. We're going to talk about some of the video enhancements and really what they mean. And we're going to touch on Business Edition 6000, which really has a strong play in the mid-market space, which is really around, under 1,000 seats. And what does Business Edition 6000 bring to us that we didn't have in the past with other offerings from Cisco? And last but not least, we're going to talk about WebEx Social and the WebEx portfolio, and really what that looks like today and the offerings that it allows us to provide. So let's talk about licensing. So customers were asking, say, Cisco has this licensing model that's out there today. Maybe in the earlier versions prior to 8, we had device license units. We were licensing on a per application basis. We needed to simplify the licensing structure because number one, licensing on a per application or per device basis became very complex, and then managing the licenses became complex. So customers were asking for a more simple licensing structure from a procurement and back-end administrative purposes. They wanted to make licensing more flexible, so meaning that I want to be able to deploy licensing a lot easier, right? In the previous, or a use case would be that in the past, prior to UC9 or UC8, what I would have to do is go to the various applications, even though we kind of maybe made some licensing advancements. The reality was on the back end, when we actually had to go and apply the licensing, there was complexities around it because we still had to go around to each application. So with that being said, customers were asking for more flexibility around that, and also if they were to grow their environment, being able to grow their environment without being kind of locked into certain variables. So if I had a certain amount of licenses on my system today and I wanted to grow and it was a last-minute update that I needed to make to my system, technically I wasn't able to do that unless I purchased additional licenses and installed them into my system. So Cisco has made some advancements around that when we start talking about Enterprise License Manager later on in the day. And also, with the licensing models, how can we lower the total cost of ownership for our customers, right? So it's great that we're looking at ways to simplify, make it more flexible, but at the same time, how can we make it more affordable? So we're going to talk about some of the licensing enhancements that Cisco made in order to kind of answer those questions. So as many of you may know, this is kind of what the licensing model looked like. So we had what we called User Connect licensing, which was pretty much licensing for each of the applications. You license the application separately, but it would be a user-based license. So it wouldn't be a traditional where I would maybe license what we call device license units per device. In this case, we moved over to a per-user licensing model, where I license on a per-user basis. But as many of you can see here, the reality is we have all these different models and types available to us. So there was a lot of complexity within the industry as far as, which one is best for me, and do I need, in order for me to get X, do I really need to go to Y, or can I kind of go further downstream in the licensing tiers in order to achieve that? So what Cisco did is they pretty much took a look at the licensing models and they said, listen, we really need to make this simpler for our customers and even our partners, right? Because we want to be able to have those quicker turnaround times, at the same time provide the additional benefits we've seen on the last slide. So what they've done is pretty much collapse the licensing. So as opposed to having all those different tiers of licensing, now really what we have is a tier of User Connect licensing and 3 tiers or 2 tiers of Unified Workspace licensing. So Unified Workspace licensing, the main difference between User Connect licensing and Unified Workspace licensing is really the fact that Unified Workspace licensing encompasses the majority of the Unified Communications application from when we license it. And this slide kind of goes into that, and I'm not going to go through each one, but as you can see on the different tiers, they provide different application support. Now, User Connect licensing, the majority or the license is really based for call control, and you have optional components where if you wanted to add messaging on top of that. Now, one of the nice new things that Cisco has introduced as part of this licensing reorganization is the capability to have Jabber or that presence application across any of these licensing tiers, where in the past it was optional on the lower end. And when I spoke about the lower end, I was talking about the User Connect licensing. Also, what they have done is in the User Connect licensing, we have the capability not only to support more than one endpoint. So with User Connect Plus, I have the capability to support 2 endpoints. But I also have the capability to support video endpoints, right, where that wasn't an option in the past. Now, when we spoke about kind of making it more affordable and lowering the total cost of ownership, really this, in my view, really plays into that. So when we looked at Cool Standard in the past, and for those of you who have had experience with Unified Workspace licensing, Cool Standard technically entitled us to one physical phone and a soft phone, whether that be running on a Jabber or some other type of soft phone. So it entitled me really to 2 types of phones. If I had a situation where maybe I had an executive that required multiple phones, that would actually have to bring me up a tier to Cool Professional in order to supply that. So what we found ourselves coming into, from a customer scenario, was having mixed type of licensing. So we had Cool Pro licenses for those executives. We had maybe Cool Standard for the rest of the user population that maybe only required one device. And what was happening is from a pricing perspective, it was increasing the total cost of ownership to our customers. So Cisco realized that, and what they did is they took that multiple device support and brought it downstream. So now Cool Standard not only supports what it did in the past, but now also supports multiple devices, and that actually supports up to 10 devices. So in the past, where we had customers that maybe had to go Pro, now we can support that with a Cool Standard. But that was a big advancement, if you will. And just like they have in the past, they still support Jabber or Presence capabilities, and some of the WebEx capabilities and meeting place capabilities, which we'll see broken out on the next slide. So really, these are some of the top features that were broken out. So as mentioned, User Connect licensing, User Connect licensing, we have single dual support now. We now support Jabber across all of the different licensing tiers. We have our standard Cool licensing with User Connect, Unity Connection support, which it always had, but now we have multiple device support. And really, the only reason you would have to go up to a professional license these days would be if you required the type of WebEx social, which we're going to talk about later on, but the web collaboration components, maybe via WebEx, or the audio conference bridging support that maybe if you want to have an on-site audio bridge within your organization to merge audio streams, that would require us to move up to a professional license. But I would say the majority of organizations and customers out there can feel confident and comfortable going with a Cool Standard license these days, and they would have pretty much all application support that we would require. Now, let's talk about Cisco Jabber. So you heard me talk about Jabber, and really Jabber is what Cisco had prior to Jabber was a bunch of different disparate applications, and they did similar things. So we used to have a client called Unified Personal Communicator that was a Windows-based client that supplied me presence capabilities, click-to-dial capabilities, and stuff like that. We had another application that was on the Mac, which was called Jabber. We had different smartphones or different smart device type of applications that provided similar functionalities, such as Cisco Mobile. So what Cisco has done to kind of simplify that is consolidate everything into one Cisco Jabber. So no matter what device you're on or no matter where you are, the common goal here is to provide a similar experience leveraging the same application and the same back-end infrastructure. So really, when we talk about, how do we enhance our employee productivity? Employee productivity really, one of the big enhancements is obviously how do we reduce their time? And I think the common use case that's out there that we may hear or you may have heard or you may not heard is really about communications attempts. So if I'm working on a project and I need to contact somebody for additional information, I'm going to give them, maybe I reach out to them on their phone, maybe I shoot them an email. When I call them on their phone, they don't pick up. I leave a voicemail. Then I go next in line. Let me call them on their cell phone. Call them again. So at that point, I'm going to have 3 communications attempts, and maybe they don't answer, and I can't get a hold of them. So at this point, I still don't have the information I need, right? So what do? The normal next step would be to call somebody else. And then I call somebody else, and maybe I do the same thing. Maybe I don't get a hold of them, or I do get a hold of them. But the reality is, if I do get a hold of them, now I have my information I need, but I had to go through my first communications attempts with the first individual, and by the time I get back to that first individual telling them I have that information, they're wasting time calling me back. So not only did I burn up cycles trying to get in contact with them, but they're also burning cycles now trying to get a hold of me, right? So the reality is there a way that we can minimize the amount of time it takes to get the information that we need in order to be productive? Well, what Jabber allows us to do is get additional insight or a peek into the availability of those users. So the users within the organization, as you can see, if I'm on a a Windows-based or Mac-based device or my iPad, I could see a listing of users. I can see a picture of them. I can see their availability, so if they're available. So I know the first time that, hey, listen, I need to call Joe up because I need the information from Joe that to help me move on with what I'm doing on this project. I can look at Joe, and right away I would see Joe's in a meeting or he's not available based on his present state. Let me get a hold of Sally and see if she can get me the information. I see Sally's available. I can click on Sally within the client itself, and I can start a dialogue with Sally. And I can, have a dialogue. I can maybe instant message Sally and then get that information. Or maybe I wanted to collaborate with Sally because I had some information on my desktop that I wanted to share. So these clients will provide, the Jabber client will provide for that. So it can provide instant messaging capabilities. It provides that presence capability we spoke about. It provides the interaction, whether it be for voice or video. So if I wanted to have a video interaction, which we all know from a video standpoint, if I'm seeing somebody, multitasking is a lot more difficult when you're looking at somebody eye to eye. A lot of times these days, if you're speaking to somebody on the phone, more than likely they're multitasking, looking at their computer, sending emails, and I'm horrible at it because when I'm reading an email, I kind of don't pay attention, and the person on the far end knows, so they don't really need to see me, but the majority of people probably are a lot better at it than I am, and may be able to get away with it. But now, seeing a face-to-face interaction, and you have that accountability, and you know that person is focused. So Jabber can provide for that type of experience. Also, that sharing of the desktop, desktop sharing is there as well. And again, to kind of circle back to what we originally seen on the first slide, were that we can have this type of experience with an infrastructure that's either on my premises or in the cloud. So I can have that experience in both scenarios, right? So that's very important to know, and across those multiple devices. The next slide really just talks about how we have all these different endpoints that I can support with Jabber, the single application, where it allows me to be anywhere at any time and have the same end-user experience. But on the back end, I'm leveraging the same infrastructure. So it's not like if I have a Apple iPad running Cisco Jabber on it, and I have maybe Jabber running on my Windows PC, that I need two separate back-end infrastructure components in order to support them. I do not. I can support them leveraging the same infrastructure, and that's key because I think, as we've seen in the past, as the adoption of smart devices, how we supported them, how we provided connectivity to them around security and all that good stuff. In the past, we've seen that wasn't the case, and we had to put multiple infrastructures in if we wanted to provide mobile support. Well, what we're seeing now within UC8 and UC9, that's no longer the case, and we're able to support these applications leveraging the same infrastructure that we have in place for our enterprise. So we spoke about licensing. So enterprise in UC or Unified Communications Manager 9, we have an application that was introduced called Enterprise License Manager. Enterprise License Manager can either co-reside on Unified Communications Manager or can be a separate virtual machine. So just to take a step back, for those of you that don't know or may have heard, all the Cisco applications today can be virtualized, right? So we have Cisco UCS hardware, which is Cisco's virtualization platform, which we can put a hypervisor on, which is VMware, and then have these applications that I spoke about, so Unified Communications Manager, Unity Connection for messaging, maybe Presence, what have you, as virtual machines on this hardware and have them co-reside. So Enterprise License Manager can actually either be a part of the Unified Communications Manager virtual machine, or it could actually be its own virtual machine. So it can co-reside or be on its own. Now, really, what Enterprise License Manager allows us to do is have a centralized management point for licensing. So in the past, where maybe I was, as most of you already know, we had this workspace licensing or user-based licensing out there for some time. But the challenge with it was, although from a procurement standpoint and a sales standpoint, we're selling it on a per user basis. The reality is that on the back end, we're still getting the same licensing keys, and we still have to implement those licenses the same way we used to have to do them prior to the user-based licensing model. So the complexities around that, it was really pretty much, it was, hey, listen, we have this user-based licensing, but on the back end, it never changed. It was the same. So it was a lot of complexities surrounding that. So what Enterprise License Manager allows us to do is now we've seen those different workspace licensing models. So we see Standard, we've seen Pro, we've seen User Connect, Enhanced, Plus, what have you. Enterprise Licensing Manager has these different licensing levels. We see them within a single dashboard, and we know what licenses we have available and what has been used, not only from a Unified Communications Manager perspective, but for our other applications. And at this point, we're looking at support with Unified Communications Manager, Unity Connection, and Presence. All right, so I have a centralized dashboard which I can import these license keys into. I can see what users I currently have available to me and what are being allocated, and my applications being Unified Communications Manager, Unity Connection for messaging, and Presence actually communicate back into Enterprise License Manager to get that information. Now, flexibility, which was discussed earlier on, it provides flexibility due to the fact that now if I need to maybe add a new location that maybe has 100 or 30 users, whatever it may be, and traditionally, depending on how much lead times there are, you would have to purchase licensing, install the license, then turn a location up. But depending on the type of business you have, you may not have that lead time. It may come up relatively quickly. So what Enterprise License Manager allows us to do is pretty much add additional devices and have a period of time where we can have those users on the system without having to purchase the license. So really, it gives us the opportunity to pretty much re-up our licensing within an interval or period of time, and that period of time is 60 days. So for instance, if you had 100 users or 500 users that were licensed on the system and you went 100 over, when you went 100 over, you would have 60 days to obtain the licensing in order to be compliant. So that provides our customers a lot more flexibility than they had in the past, because now we can, not only from a phone standpoint can we add additional devices, but now from a messaging perspective or a presence standpoint, we can add users dynamically. So a lot more flexibility there. So just to do a quick recap, we spoke about the Jabber client and pretty much how it's supported on multiple endpoints across smart devices and different types of PCs, Macs, what have you. We spoke about how it's included in all the licensing models today. We spoke about Enhanced Plus and how they changed that to support more than one device to 2 devices, and the additional video support around the EX60 and EX90. And then we spoke about, the main takeaway from Cool Standard is the multiple device support, and Cool Professional, as we've seen on a subsequent slide, that they not only do we have WebEx meeting support from an audio and collaboration perspective, as that's part of Cool Pro, we also have WebEx social support now as well. So let's talk about enhanced system management. So within Unified Communications, we have these different applications. Although we spoke about Cisco consolidating a lot of applications, the reality is we still have separate applications that need to be administered and managed. So how do we streamline that? Because the reality is the day-to-day operations from a moves, edge, and change perspective, we don't want to have a voice expert on staff in order to provide for that. The first option is to go with Converged Assist, which is CTG's offering, which is a day 2 support model where we can handle those moves, edge, and changes for you. But the other option is to maybe look at a centralized management, provisioning management. And Cisco has a Cisco Unified Provisioning Manager application that can be the centralized application for management. So now I don't need to have somebody that knows anything about calling search spaces, route patterns, or anything like that, media resource lists. I just need somebody that can go into a system, log in, and pretty much look to see what orders have come in. And when I say orders, what I mean is the Unified Provisioning Manager platform actually has a web interface where end users can go into and put orders in or requests for devices. And then when those orders come in, they can be approved and processed through the system. So there's a nice process flow that's been put in place within the Unified Provisioning Manager. So from start of the order to completion of the provisioning, it has a nice flow-through process. So it really eliminates adding double information, somebody sending me email, here's the person's username and information, you know, whatever it may be. Now I can just have them enter it in, and now I can provision that user. Also, what's nice about it, you can create templates, so whether it's be based on different sites, site-specific templates, maybe based on different types of users, whether it be executive, maybe administrative assistant users, based on the way the phones are set up, or the way the voicemail boxes are set up, or the way presence is set up, we can templatize it. And what's nice about that, the reality is, when you have, when we provision within any of the systems, unless you're copying and you're following a strict process, more than likely there's going to be discrepancies within the way the devices are configured on a per-device basis. So in order to mitigate those type of discrepancies, we put processes in place, but not all those processes aren't always followed. And in this case, we're eliminating that, right? So the template's created, and the process is just to provision the device. And this can be on a per-device basis or bulk. So this slide just really pretty much talking about the user experience and how they're able to get a 10-to-1 reduction in time based on the provisioning. On this slide, we're showing pretty much how it looks prior to Unified Provisioning Manager, where we had a request come in to maybe the administrator of the system, and that the administrator had Unified Communications Manager. Maybe we had Unity Connection for messaging, which more than likely they would have. We have presence for Java on the back end. Maybe we have other locations that weren't, the connectivity they had back into the corporate headquarters was limited. Maybe they had some spotty VPN coverage, so we wanted to have local call processing down at the facility. So we have Call Manager Express and Unity Express residing on a router. Well, now I have the capability, and in the past I had to go into Call Manager, provision a phone. I had to go into Unity Connection, provision a voicemail. I had to go into Cisco Presence, configure the presence interface, and I had to go into each of the routers and maybe provision whomever else I wanted on that end. So with Unified Provisioning Manager, now I have the request coming in through the portal. I have the templates that I spoke about, and from this centralized management platform, I can now push out the provisioning information to all these different types of services or applications on the back end. So it's saving a substantial amount of time and also reducing the requirements for the level of individual needed in order to administer the system. Now, in Unified Communications Manager 9, they introduced a new feature called Extend and Connect, which is actually a really nice feature. So today, within an organization, we have our enterprise endpoints, right? We have our Unified Communications environment. We have maybe Jabber, and we have our various endpoints, whether they be desktop phones, video endpoints, what have you, or mobile devices. But we may have a hybrid environment. Maybe we have some SOHO users or small office home users. Maybe we have some locations that have legacy PBXs or key systems in them. And really, we talk about this Jabber and how we can enhance user productivity. But what do I do for the sites that maybe I don't have reliable VPN connectivity at, and my only way of providing a consistent audio experience is by leveraging their maybe analog phone or cell phone that they have. Or maybe I have some locations that have a key system in place or a traditional PBX that I want to be able to leverage the application, but I'm not, based on the life cycle of that hardware, I'm not able to replace it at this point. So what the Extend and Connect allows us to do is pretty much extend the enterprise capabilities down into those type of legacy or traditional devices. So what we do is we pretty much on Unified Communications Manager, we create a CTI type of device that then points to a number. In this case, it could be a PBX or a phone hanging off of PBX, or it can be an analog device, right? So an example of it would be if I'm sitting at my home office, I know that I don't have reliable, maybe I have DSL, it's not reliable, there's no quality of service in place because it's a broadband internet connection, so as we know it's best effort traffic, so I can't guarantee that quality of the experience. And we want to guarantee the quality because maybe they're interacting with customers on a daily basis. So what this gives me the capability to do is point to maybe the analog phone at their home or a cell phone that maybe they have good cell coverage, who knows, And what I can do is, through the Jabber client itself, where I have my presence information and present state, I can tie that into that device. So if I have this device sitting at home and I want to do a click-to-call through my Jabber client on my desktop, I go maybe to Outlook and I say dial this person, and in reality now it's going to connect into my phone and call that person, and I can have it complete the call. Also, the same holds true if, say, somebody's in the corporate environment, they're at their Cisco IP phone and they want to call me. I have a 4-digit extension. They call my 4-digit extension. Now it rings me on this phone. Well, we had that capability with single number reach for the longest time, but what, in addition, what the Extended Connect allows us to do is now I can control that call through Jabber. So within Jabber, I'm going to see that call as an active call. I can put that person, although it's on my analog phone, I can put them on hold. I can transfer them back and maybe into somebody else within the environment, right? I can maybe go into a conference call. I have all those enterprise controls that I would normally have on an IP-based system on an analog phone. And really, the same holds true for those legacy PBX type of scenarios where maybe you want to give them a Jabber type of client on their desktop, and you want to have a click-to-call type of capability, or you want to have enterprise phone control. Now you can provide that feature with the Extended Connect. So it's definitely a nice new feature that Cisco introduced in Unified Communications Manager 9. Some of the video enhancements, I would say the biggest video enhancement is what Cisco did was a lot of, so within the Cisco Tandberg infrastructure backend, there's pretty much a handful of components that would exist in a traditional environment. We would have something called a VCS control, which would be pretty much our gatekeeper that the devices would register to. We would have a VCS expressway, which would be a device that would maybe reside in my DMZ that would provide me business-to-business communications with parties that want to have video communications outside of my business. And then the third component may be what we call TMS, or Telepresence Management System, which would pretty much be my management component for those systems and endpoints. Well, within Unified Communications Manager 9, a lot of that VCS control functionality has been built into it, so we can supply a lot of control capabilities within and have the endpoints registered directly to Unified Communications Manager. Now, business-to-business communications outside of the organization still need to be provided via the expressway. So a VCS expressway can then communicate with Unified Communications Manager for business-to-business. In addition, as I mentioned earlier on in the presentation, there also may be the requirement to have a VCS control in place even if you had UC9. So if you wanted to have H323 video endpoints be part of the architecture, or some legacy endpoints that you want to have be part of an architecture, that may require having a VCS control in place in addition. But if you just had SIP video endpoints that you wanted to have registered to Unified Communications Manager, we can have that capability with UC9, and the portfolio support has been expanded. Also, one of the nice capabilities that we're going to see on I think it's the next slide or 2 slides away, is around URI dialing, which I'm going to talk about. Also, in Unified Communications Manager 9, one of, as we talk about video, and having, quality video communications experiences, we want to be able to have not only quality of service, but also call admission control capabilities. So whether it be a VCS control environment integrated with Unified Communications Manager, I can have cross or intercluster call admission control capabilities within UC9. Also, one of the nice new features that they implemented in Unified Communications Manager 9 is pretty much a location-aware call admission control. And really what that means is, we'll take a step back and let's talk about call admission control in the basic form. Call admission control, if I have a corporate headquarters and I have a site that's maybe a remote location, I know that I have X amount of bandwidth that I'm going to allocate for voice. Well, within the system, I can say, hey, I'm going to allow 500K for voice. And if I hit that 500K, I can then maybe route out the PSTN and not, offload that traffic elsewhere so I don't overload or oversubscribe my WAN connectivity. And really, typically what you would do from a call admission control perspective would be match your quality of service profiles, right? Because if you're prioritizing a certain amount of bandwidth, you want to match that and not exceed it, because once you exceed it in times of contention, you will have voice quality issues. So with location aware allows us to do is not just see that I have a headquarters in site A, that's a remote location, but now it gives me intelligence into the paths that I'm using to get there. Because most organizations just don't have one connection or one WAN connection going to the remote locations. I can have multiple WAN locations, whether it be maybe global MPLS networks, maybe I have 2 overlays, or maybe I have a primary MPLS connection, and maybe I have VPN backup has routed connectivity across it. By leveraging Unified Communications Manager 9 and some of the RSVP features that have been built into it, even though you may have an MPLS network that you have no control of the devices in the MPLS cloud on, as long as the devices on the customer prem can support RSVP, we can now leverage this location-aware CAC in order to provide intelligent decisions on what paths we take to guarantee that we're going to have that amount of available bandwidth when we traverse that link. So I can make intelligent decisions on, do I take link A or link B based on the amount of bandwidth that's available and / allocated. So that was really one of the nice features that was built into UC9, and also the fact that you don't need to have a fully, WAN or MPLS environment that's all RSVP enabled to support it is also a key feature. So let's talk about URI dialing, and this is what I was alluding to a little bit earlier. Within a video environment these days, we're not typically dialing via IP address anymore, right? So I'm not going to a video endpoint. I'm not entering an IP address in the endpoint in order to call somebody else. Typically, what I'm doing in today's day and age is I'm putting a URI address in, and really what a URI address is, it's an email address, typically. And that email address really identifies that other video endpoint that I'm calling, whether that endpoint may be reside in my organization or outside of the organization. So within Unified Communications Manager 9, we extended the URI support. So meaning that in earlier versions of Unified Communications Manager, endpoints, whether they be audio or video, had to have pretty much a directory number associated to them. You couldn't assign them a URI. So what happened was folks that maybe had video endpoints, phones, and maybe had single number reach capabilities where everything's ringing, it didn't support that, single number reach with video wasn't supported, and mapping a URI to a extension was complex, and you had to have additional capabilities on the VCS side in order to provide for that. So now what we're able to do is not only when we assign a directory number to somebody in the system, we can also assign them a URI address. And that URI address is assigned to them. And if somebody were to call that URI address, it will ring them on all their endpoints via that single number reach capability and provide that video, that single point of video interaction. So we're going to talk, in this section, we'll talk about Business Edition 6000. For those of you who didn't know, Cisco, prior to the Business Edition 6000, Cisco offered something called Business Edition 5000, surprise. And Business Edition 5000, really, it was targeted for organizations that had 500 users or less. All right, and typically if you had close to 500, you wouldn't have heard Business Edition 5000 because we wouldn't have been going with it. But the reality is it supported 10 locations and it supported up to 500 users. And really what it was a single box solution. So it was a server that had Unified Communications Manager and Unity Connection running on it, wasn't virtualized, and it was what Cisco, their traditional hardware called MCS hardware, which was really rebranded or OEM IBM hardware, all right? And you were limited, and the limitations were, number one, the scale of the system, but also there was no high availability with the system, even if you wanted it, and there was limitations on application support. So we're talking about all these great applications. If you wanted to add applications, you were limited, or you need to add additional servers. So Cisco then, seeing that as more organizations were requiring more support and flexibility, and as we've seen the architecture go more virtualized, they introduced the 6000, Business Edition 6000. And really, Business Edition 6000 is now sitting on the Cisco UCS hardware, which is that virtualization platform we spoke about earlier. It has a VMware hypervisor on it, and it actually comes pre-installed with Unified Communications Manager, Unified Provisioning Manager, which we spoke about earlier, that single management platform, and Unity connection from a messaging standpoint on it. And so there's 3 virtual machines that are coming installed on that platform. Now what's nice about it, it scales up to 1,000 users, and it can support up to 50 locations. So the support has substantially grown. So maybe the customers that were going with full-blown call manager in the past, where when you look at it from a TCO perspective was higher, we're now looking at Business Edition 6000 as being a perfect fit for them, not only from a sizing perspective, but even from a feature standpoint. Because now I'm in Business Edition 6000, although I have a box, it's a UCS hardware, I have multiple applications running on it, I can also provide high availability. So I can add another server to it and build out that clustered environment to provide a full HA environment, which we did not have the capability to do in the past. And also I have the scalability of a larger environment, which was not available in the earlier Business Edition versions. So pretty much reducing the total cost of ownership substantially. So this is just going in, talking about how we have some pre-installed applications, and really Cisco's excited about that due to the fact that if the systems come with pre-installed virtual machines on them, the total time to implementation is going to be reduced. So, customers that are looking to implement systems relatively quickly and cut down, number one, on the amount of time it takes to implement, but the actual costs that come along with that. The Business Edition 6000 is a great fit. So day one installation, so having the shortness in implementation time, but also what's nice about it, it comes with that Unified Provisioning Manager application that we spoke about, which wasn't the case in the past, and that's part of UC9. So having that centralized management platform as part or included with Business Edition 6000 is a nice feature to have. So in summary, Business Edition 6000 is running Unified Communications Manager 9. It's a full-blown version, so as far as limitations, it just comes down to scale. So all the video support we spoke about is supported. Faster time to deploy due to the installation of the virtual machines already from the factory, and simplified operations via Unified Provisioning Manager being bundled in with the Business Edition 6000 offering. So this is the last section we're going to talk about. So we're going to pretty much talk about the WebEx portfolio. So WebEx in general, so WebEx is our, Cisco's cloud web collaboration component, and within that we see, we have a traditional collaboration where maybe I have some video capabilities. I can collaborate, share. I'm leveraging a hosted audio bridge, what have you. So that's really what the WebEx interactions look like in the past. Where we're seeing WebEx go is kind of expanding on that, providing more of providing HD video support now, and also expanding the support to the smart devices. So I know, like for myself, I have a WebEx application on my iPad. I can have a video interaction with the WebEx on my iPad. I can see content that other folks are sharing. If I'm the host, I can pass the ball on my iPad. So really just expanding a lot of the great WebEx features, expanding on them for the actual PC or Mac-based experience, but also extending them to smart devices. A lot of great enhancements that have come along with that innovation. So it's just really talking about the iPad. If you have WebEx today, I would suggest that you download the application. It's free, and start using it, because it's definitely a powerful application. You can see it shows all the folks that are on via video, via the pane, and you can pretty much click on them and have a decent or a high definition video experience. Now, last but not least is WebEx Social. What is really WebEx Social? WebEx Social, the analogy has been used that it's really pretty much the YouTube for enterprises. So it provides a common workspace. So if you have a lot of different teams or communities within the organization that you want to be able to have a space to come to, where maybe you have a dashboard and people are posting content or information on the dashboard, they can see all the presence information. Maybe it's covered here, but I can see availability of the folks that are part of that community. I can click on them, instant message, escalate to a call, escalate to a video interaction. I can have documents managed under the environment. Pretty much having a centralized place to go for those various communities. WebEx Social is definitely a nice offering that Cisco has now brought to market, and is part of as we've seen earlier, the Cool Pro licensing. So if you had Cool Pro, you're entitled to WebEx Social. So if you already have it and you go to UC9, WebEx Social is definitely something you guys should be looking at. So with that being said, I am going to pass the ball over to Leo, and we're gonna wrap up and
All right, thanks, Scott. So thank you everyone for taking out your time today. We hope you found that the webinar was informative. Naturally, there's a lot of content here, so if perhaps there's an opportunity for us to meet up with you directly, we'd certainly welcome that opportunity. There were a couple questions that came up during the Q&A. It was actually a really highly active session, which is fantastic, so a lot of great questions came across. But one of the early questions that came in was whether or not we'd be able to share the content. So I'll just offer up that you might have noticed at the bottom of the content that some of the stuff was noted as Cisco confidential. So we are going to go back to Cisco, see if we could get permission to distribute any of the content. If as part of the evaluation you make note that perhaps you want some of the slides, please let us know. And if we can do so, then we certainly would distribute it. If not, we may offer up, if you want to take us up on it, an opportunity for us to come in. And sometimes customers ask us to represent the webinar content directly to all the members of their organization. So we'd be willing to do that as well. Beyond that, there were a couple other quick questions we just wanted to wrap up with that came across. And ultimately, I'll be working with Brian Pagluso, who's been handling the Q&A as we've been progressing through the webinar. And the first question that came across was, what are some of the major things I need to be considering in the planning for an upgrade to Cisco UC9, either from a TDM or a legacy Cisco UC environment? So Brian, if you could field that, that would be great.
Yeah, absolutely. Excuse me. Typically what we see when we're talking about a migration, either from, an alternate vendor solution or from a TDM solution, we'll come across licensing issues, right? Somebody will ask, hey, I'm migrating from Call Manager 5 to Unified Communications Manager 9 or 8.6 or whatever the situation might be. It comes down to a question around what are your legacy licensing issues, what's the hardware you're using now? And this is a question that did come up, like you mentioned, Leo, quite a bit. We would want to look at the hardware that's in play today. Can it support the new applications? Can it support virtualization? What is your desire to go to a virtualized environment versus separate physical servers? So it's really a question that's specific to different organizations because everybody's going to have different platform types. A lot of people are going to have different licensing situations. So that would be when we'd come in and meet with you and have a more detailed discussion around your specific environment.
Okay. A second question that had also come in that we hadn't had a chance to field was, I have a somewhat large user environment. How can I go about migrating my infrastructure yet still maintain a cohesive experience as I go through a phased migration?
All right. Yeah, great question. This is very typical. A lot of companies will have, say, one major headquarters in a major area, such as New York City, a lot of satellite offices, whether they're geographically close to that facility or spread across the country. These could have all disparate PBXs. So what we would talk about is we'd look at the capabilities of those existing systems. So let's say in your headquarters facility in New York City or you have a large data center, we could deploy the core of the system, the Unified Communications Manager core, as well as the voicemail application and contact center, presence, whatever those other applications might be that you're looking to deploy. Those other sites can be integrated in a few different ways. I've seen some companies, depending on the size, take on the big bang approach where they migrate everybody in a very short period of time, or I've seen other situations where we would integrate with those legacy systems. So we could tie those legacy systems back into the Unified Communications Manager environment via TDM trunks, if we put a gateway out there as an example, IP, whether it's H323 or SIP trunks back into the call manager if those particular systems supported it. And then we could support a phased migration, but we can maintain a cohesive dial plan so nobody's essentially left out.
All right, excellent, Brian. Thank you very much. So that will conclude our Q&A session. And with that, I'm going to be turning it back over to Anthony Malley.
Thanks, Leo, and thank you, Scott and Brian, for a very informative presentation.